And you can't stop sending pallets of gas to the leadership. There'll be a war. Well, we did, and there wasn't a war. We were told you can't move the United States Embassy in Israel to Jerusalem. There'll be a war. Well, we did, and there was not a war. We were told you can't allow Israel to have its rights in Judea and Samaria and the Golan Heights. There'll be war. We did that. We righted that, and there was no war. We were told, and this was believed for an awful long time, that you can't secure peace in the region, in the Middle East, between Arab nations and Israel without buying off Palestinian kleptocrats. You'll create World War III. But we did. The Abraham Accords forged a real peace in the Middle East. The Abraham Accords rewrote decades of failed shuttle negotiations because we were willing to go against the elites of the foreign policy established both left and right to secure American freedom and to champion your values. It's unfortunate. It looks like the new Team Biden, appears to be headed back into appeasing Iran. This will be a disaster for the United States of America and a disaster for the region as well. I remember, too. President Trump sent me to Pyongyang when I was a CIA director to meet with Chairman Kim to prepare for the historic summit that was ultimately held in Singapore. You all remember this. We threatened fire and fury. We threatened fire and fury not to go to war, but to deter it, and deter it we did. You know, since those two summits, one in Singapore, one in Hanoi, the North Koreans haven't tested a long-range ballistic missile, and they haven't tested their nuclear weapons. Exactly 0 tests have been conducted. That's real foreign policy. It was humbling too, because on the second trip, I had the chance to bring home American hostages from Pyongyang. 3 men at 3 o'clock in the morning. And America first always means never forgetting about our warriors. There was no greater honor, too, than the fact that we brought back other Americans like Pastor Brunson, who stayed in Turkey, detained wrongfully for just far too long. And we brought back so many remains of our fallen in Korea as well. This was amazing and right, and America first. So how many of you remember Qasem Soleimani, Allah rest his soul? This was the Iranian general who was trying to cause trouble for America. He was on a mission to harm Americans, but we were a few steps ahead of him. So in the end, he didn't cause trouble for Americans or anyone else ever again. Do you know that to this day, most of the liberals and most of the folks on Cpac still won't acknowledge that ridding the world of an America hitting terrorists was a good thing. This is fantasy. Look, we drew a red line when the Syrians gassed children and women. And we told them, don't do that again. And when they crossed it, President Trump ordered 70 plus beautiful American-made Tomahawk missiles to let them know that we weren't going to allow them to kill women and children. America first takes real courage, takes a Secretary of State willing to walk into a room and tell it like it is, and a president who will have his back. We had that. Speaking of backs, I hear President Biden saying, America's back. Back to what? So, right, back to pallets of cash to the Ayatollah so he can build missiles that threaten us? Back to apologizing when Iranians tell our soldiers and sailors to take to their knees at gunpoint. President Biden killing pipeline, back to all the things that put America at risk, back to supporting a pipeline in Europe that'll create European jobs. This is not where we want to go back to any time at all. We certainly don't want to go back to letting China have trade deals that kill our jobs right here in America. We can't afford it. We can't afford it. It's not the right thing, and we don't have to do it. We must be bold, and we must always put America first. You know, we spent a lot of time talking about being canceled. I was really happy that this is being aired on television, not canceled, at least for the moment. We worked tirelessly with great success to deliver on our values, American values that have made this such a special, unique nation. But this country was built on what our founders understood, and then the Bill of Rights that came behind that Constitution. They built a nation recognizing that our rights come from our Creator and not from any government. Our union becomes more perfect every time we defend our sovereignty and we defend our borders. And I'm proud that we were the most pro-life administration in the history of the United States of America. It was my job to deny that any taxpayer dollars from any hardworking America ever went to perform abortion any place in the world, and we've promoted adoption everywhere and always. And don't forget, too, President Trump appointed an awful lot of judges that understand the words life and liberty, and that words that have real meaning. I worked with the Mexican government, my counterpart, Foreign Minister of Mexico and President, to secure our borders. We worked hard, too, to make sure that drugs and other things didn't traffic across that border, and that meant, too, protecting your right to own firearms. Our Second Amendment matters. It builds communities, it builds strong families, and it makes sure each of us has the right to defend ourselves precisely as our founders intended. You know, I'm always stunned. I was like, liberals pretend to care about the poor, and then they side with the union bosses against the workers. They pretend to stand for children while kids in Democrat-led inner cities aren't in front of computers like they think they are. They're struggling to figure out how to stay safe from drug lords and how to get a meal. That's not good leadership. It's not America First leadership. It's not taking care of those people you're charged with protecting. And we need to get every one of our children back in school. And we need to get them back in now. I was a soldier about 25, 30 years ago, and about 100 pounds ago, too. And when I hear Democrats say they want a strong America, I know that they are working to undermine it. Sadly, mark my word, they're going to gut the defense budget that we worked so hard to build. They'll do it to pay for their Green New Deal. It kind of makes me mad, right? They're going to trade Army green for AOC green. That is a bad trade. And as I said before, our young men and women, we don't want to put them in harm's way. We don't want them to go to war. But when we're weak at home, when we don't stand up for our military, the risk of war increases when deterrence fades. We cannot let that happen. They wanted to fund the police while they barricade the Capitol. This is backwards. And canceling our freedom to assemble peacefully while censoring our communications online is completely antithetical to what our founders understood about America. You know, it reminds me, when I headed off to West Point, my parents couldn't afford to fly to New York. I grew up in Southern California. So they left me at the airport. My mother was happy and all kinds of feelings. She was my mother was a cigarette smoking high school graduate who was the most decent and toughest woman I've ever met. She said, Mike, she pulled me aside. I think she didn't want my dad to hear this. She said, Michael, don't ever let them wear you down. Wear them down. I've never forgotten what my mom told me that day. We'll all remember it. Keep grinding, keep championing American values. One more story. Smartest, best sea officer that I ever came to know worked closely with him. He was a former he was Air Force Special Operations Officer. I'd ask him about someone who was working on our team, and I'd say, what do you think of him, or what do you think of her? And he'd say, love that guy, pipe hitter. You know what he meant? He meant that person got stuff done. They were a grinder. They kept banging away. You all know these 4 years are going to test us. I need each of you to be a pipe hitter. Get stuff done. Keep grinding. Be a pipe hitter. Be a pipe hitter. Be a pipe hitter at church. Right? Be a pipe hitter at church. Be a pipe hitter at your PTA meeting. Don't let them bring crazy into your classrooms. Be a pipe hitter at your VFW. Lead the team to continue to support our military warriors. Be a pipe hitter. Be a pipe hitter when they tell you they're closing the mine or the factory because of some green vision. Keep it open. President Reagan, a real pipe hitter. President Reagan got stuff done, and he once said, if we lose freedom here, there is no place to escape. This is the last stand on earth. I saw that. I saw that as your Secretary of State as I traveled all around the world. And I am confident that he was right. I am confident that the American star will shine across the heavens so long as we keep a proper understanding of our God-given rights at the center of who we are, and we keep up our quest to secure our freedom for our own people and for all of mankind. I'll be with you in the fight. God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Comey was spying on Trump. Well, the reason he was writing the memos was to create a record so that he could destroy him. I'm paraphrasing, admittedly, but that's pretty clear what was going on. This report confirms they went in to confront him with that ambush interview because they were trying to make a case against him. You had the FBI director under Obama playing spy. We're talking about spying on the campaign, spying on President-elect Trump, spying on President Trump. Comey was the chief spy, and he was designated as such by Barack Obama because they met about this very issue a day or two before in the Oval Office with Barack Obama, Biden, Susan Rice, all the king's horses, all the king's men in there. And Comey was the go-to guy.
You've seen the radical left pushing their agenda in Washington. Socialism, amnesty, censorship. But in the States, quietly, these radicals are pushing a power play that would give them more power. Forever. The left's National Popular Vote campaign would let liberal cities on the coasts pick the president every single time. The National Popular Vote Interstate Compact would shred the Constitution. The leader of the group bragged to the New York Times that it's a way to get around the founders' design. And what about election integrity? A national vote could require a national recount, but the left's National Popular Vote plan doesn't allow it. But it does set the stage for a complete federal takeover of elections. Goodbye local control. To win now, it takes a broad coalition across the country. But National Popular Vote would open the door to regional parties and spoiler candidates, making it easier for socialists to win. Defend the Constitution. Stop socialism. Stop National Popular Vote.
Welcome to Our Freedom Media Group, where freedom is real. Experience all our platforms for yourself now at www.ourfreedommg.com. Tired of restricted social media platforms? Join Our Freedom Book. Tired of selective video upload and crowdfunding sites? Join Our Freedom Tube or Our Freedom Funding. with features that include live streaming, video calling and messaging, plus a 24/7 friend finder with map geolocation, American-owned and made in the USA. We're a place where your freedom of speech will be honored. Exercise your right on a secure social media platform without bias, censors, or bans, where your ideas can compete on a level field. If you're looking for a site that doesn't fact-check you and send you to fake jail, a site that cancels cancel culture, then our Freedom Media Group is the freedom you've been waiting for. Sign up today at ourfreedommg.com, where freedom is real.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a discussion of the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. Please welcome our panel, Arizona Representative Andy Biggs, Colorado Representative Lauren Boebert, former State Representative Vernon Jones, and your moderator, talk radio host Dana Lash.
Thank you all.
We are in the gunshine state. It is so good to be with you all here today, and I look forward to this awesome conversation that we're getting ready to have. I have to tell you real quick, 2 years ago this month, I had flown from the Parkland Town Hall to Cpac in DC, and 2 years later, it's really good to be with you all again and talk about continuing protecting our Second Amendment rights. So let's get started to discussing these issues, because there's a lot to go over.
Thank you.
All right, so we had some really good conversation backstage about all of this. I want to start, some of these questions I want to ask both of you. We were talking about this. Some of them I'm just going to open the field. But I'm going to start first and foremost with, I would say, I don't think for the first time ever, I don't think I'm the biggest fire starter on the stage. It's a really nice feeling. Thank you. Thank you, Congresswoman Boebert. I appreciate it. So my first question's for you. You were granted a concealed carry permit in Washington, D.C. because you fear for your safety, obviously. I mean, God love you, you're the size of a Keebler elf. So diminutive. But don't let her fool you. But you were worried about your safety. Are you worried about your safety in D.C., the Capitol, both? What made you did get the permit, but what drove that decision for you?
Well, I've been an advocate for the Second Amendment for nearly 8 years now. I opened a restaurant in Rifle, Colorado, the only city in America named after a gun. Shortly after we opened our restaurant, there was an altercation where a man was beat to death.
Outside of your restaurant?
I'm sorry?
Or where, this
outside of my restaurant.
Yeah.
Outside of my restaurant, he was beat to death by another man. No weapons, no... And I immediately wondered, how am I going to protect everyone? How am I going to take care of the people around me? How am I going to take care of myself? I'm a mom. I have 4 boys. How am I going to protect them if there's a threat? And that's when I started looking into Colorado's carry laws. I took advantage of Colorado's open carry, and I began to carry in our restaurant. My waitresses began to carry, and I saw how Democrats want to take that right away from us. You know very well, Beto O'Rourke told all of us what they intend to do. Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15s and your AK-47s.
He didn't.
No, he did not. No. Because I drove down to his presidential rally with my Glock on my hip and told him, hell no, you're not.
All right.
But it's very much, it's a safety issue.
Absolutely.
And, as a female, you've seen the media portrays you as being huge, as tall as Vernon Jones here, who's sitting on your right, but you're not, and I mean there's certain statistics that go along with this. To this point, I want to dovetail off of this really quickly because you and I were talking backstage. Vernon Jones, who state representative for the state of Georgia, 91st district. Yes. You supported campus carry. Being that we are in Florida, and Florida has led the way on concealed carry, Florida has led the way on firearm rights. There have been a couple of step backs with red flag laws and the disenfranchisement of rights for 18 to 20-year-old military-aged people who would be in college. You supported campus carry in your state. Tell me why.
Well, first of all, those who come on campuses to perpetrate a crime, they know that they have access to sitting ducks. But if they know they come on campus and they're going to commit a crime, and some of my friends are hanging out with Smith and Wesson, they're going to see something come back at them, and I doubt they're seriously, they'll feel the same. So many women at night are going through campus, trying to get to their car to leave or to come on campus. They need to protect themselves. People, period, need to protect themselves. I believe people who are law-abiding, like me and all of us here, we want the right to bear arms. My mother was 90 years old. She passed last year. And about 6 months before she passed, she said, "Hey, Vernon, you have my gun? You have my gun, don't you?" I said, "Yeah, Mom. What are you going to do with the gun?" "Well, I just want my gun just in case somebody come up in this nursing home. I want to start blowing away." I mean, you know.
Oh, Mama Jones.
So we were reared responsibly how to handle a gun. So that's nothing new. We have to protect the Second Amendment. I had to command a very large police department. Probably one of the largest in Georgia when I was county executive. I've lost a number of police officers. And I've heard people talk about shootings and killings, and I've seen it on both sides. I've seen officers killed, and I've seen individuals killed. The fact of it is, law-abiding people who want to protect their property and want to protect themselves, they use guns responsibly. But you have some bad actors out there. But we have laws in place. If you're a felon, you can't purchase a gun. Many states have that. And when we see, and one of the problems I have with this legislation with Mark Rubio, I don't know if you get into that later, but it says if you're a domestic terrorist, well, what's the definition of a domestic terrorist? Does it mean that Vernon Jones, if I go to the United States Capitol and I'm under the terrorist watch and I haven't done anything wrong? Wait a minute, that is, something's not right. John Lewis was on a no-fly zone, Congressman John Lewis, many. So what is a terrorist? You and me could be a terrorist in their definition, and that legislation does not define what a terrorist is. And that's a little scary there, because it can happen all of us.
That is troubling. And this sets up my question, Congressman Andy Biggs, to you. We are in, again, the Gunshine State, and this is Senator Marco Rubio's state. He has reintroduced legislation. It is called the Terror Intelligence Improvement Act, and I'm going to read a quote from the bill. It says, "The bill would also provide more authority for law enforcement agencies to go after suspected terrorists while safeguarding law-abiding citizens' Second Amendment and due process rights." Well, I've read the bill thoroughly. I've written quite a bit about it, and I've discussed it a lot on air. My concern is the use of lists, Congressman, as evidence. I don't want a terrorist buying a gun, much less, I don't even want them walking out on the street, much less buying a gun. So if we're that worried that we're going to enforce a penalty, why not just indict them? Why not arrest them?
Yeah, I mean, that really gets to the point of what a pre-crime is. So if you say it's somebody who is a suspected terrorist, what do you mean by suspected terrorist? We have definitions of terrorists. By the way, the left, we had committee hearings this week where they basically defined anybody who voted for Donald Trump as a domestic terrorist.
Yeah.
So what are we? Are we all suspected terrorists because there is a mindset, but in the authoritarian left? So you actually, it's kind of a misnomer when they say they're going to protect due process. You cannot protect due process and put somebody on a list and say they're a suspected terrorist, and because they are suspected terrorists, we have no reasonable articulable suspicion. We don't have any probable cause. Thus, we cannot arrest, we cannot adequately investigate, but we're going to put them on a list. That is a huge hole and a violation of our constitutional rights, both the Fourth Amendment and the Second Amendment, and that's a real problem here, and those are some of the underlying problems with that bill, and that should be a flusher. We should just be flushing that bill.
And to that point, we don't even know the criteria for even getting on that list. There's been quite a bit written about this. Now, you have a terror watch list and you have a no-fly list, but it's the same. We don't even know the criteria to get on this. And I don't know what the left has on the list, but I'm not a fan of that at all. Now, a couple of other things that I want to get into, because I want to hit the big issues and I want to get into some personal stories here. One of the things that we were talking about, and this has been in the news because the Biden administration They promised gun control. Unfortunately, Joe Biden does not have the muscle in Congress to make that happen. I think what Manchin Toomey went through the Senate by like 53, 54. They didn't have enough when that was happening. They're not going to have enough with some of the legislation that they're trying to propose now. But that's not stopping him from looking at regulatory enactment of gun control. How can they go and abuse the regulatory process? Now, to this point, it's the issue of ghost guns. Now, we all were talking about it. We all know. How many of you know what a ghost gun is? It's actually a phantom. It's a goblin that will haunt you at night. No, I'm kidding. It's not that at all. It's basically you're 80% lower if you're making a 3D gun at home. They're talking about the serialization of firearms, and the way that the law is right now, it's like 18 USC 922 or 19 USC. You get 80% lowers, or you make your 3D printed gun. There's still federal regulation that says it has to be detectable if it's polymer, plastic. You have to have a percentage of metal. If you're a hobbyist, you can, with your 80% lower, you can make your own firearm at home, and if you sell it, it has to be serialized. So whoever wants to take this first, we could either go with Congresswoman Boebert or Congressman Biggs or Rep. Jordan as well. We could. This situation with ghost guns, is this going too far? Should Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, should they even have any weigh in on this issue at all? Should they be defining and trying to redefine what these parts are and aren't as a way to stop hobbyists from a perfectly legal activity?
So if I can just weigh in first, and then you guys can clean up the mess I make of the answer to this question. But I look at it, and what they're doing is creating law where there's no legislative authority. That's what the agency is doing, and so that's strike one right there. Number two, it's a legal activity that you're trying to impose your will, your bureaucratic will. And this is the problem with all of Washington, D.C., is that Congress will punt and lay down so the bureaucrats can go out and do whatever they want. I would say that if we as legislators thought there was a problem, that's where it would originate. We should be doing that. There is no problem right here. They manufactured crisis so that the bureaucrats can go over and take over, and it's one more inroad in violation of the God-given right, Second Amendment.
Yeah, I would agree. You didn't make a mess of that at all. That was a good answer.
So, Dina, I see this as another hijack of the American language. They are abusing this term, and they're just running amok of it. I mean, we want to be called domestic terrorists and be put on lists and all of these things. Well, then aren't we all domestic terrorists? Haven't we all been called domestic terrorists? My mom is backstage. She was accused of being the bullhorn lady and leading folks in the Capitol. And, we all came to see that wasn't true. Speaker Pelosi is called up within. There's metal detectors. At the end of the day, this is all about control. DC wants control of everyone's life. And I am there to defend our Second Amendment. This isn't about taking my gun. It's about taking your guns. And I will stand up for your God-given rights every single day.
So I have two big questions here. Very big questions. And I'm going to try to stay in our time allotted, but we could talk about this all week. This is a heavy question, and I'm going to hear from all three of you. Do you think that the National Firearms Act or the Gun Control Act or both should be repealed? Yes or no?
No.
Yes, you.
Yes.
Oh, wait a minute now. What'd you say?
Should the National Firearms Act...
There was a pregnant pause for a minute. He's like, what?
Can the gentleman please refrain?
What happened there?
Should the National...
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Congressman?
Yes.
Yes.
I got confused over there. Yeah. I got a little confused. I thought you said, should we take away our guns? I was like a flat. I'm no.
No, we're not.
Period.
You
no,
already know you may not have them.
I've been saying no so long when it comes to taking away our rights. I'm just no. Yeah. But anyhow, thank you, Dana.
The funny thing is, the Republicans are called the party of no, but we're saying no to all of their no's. They don't want you to be able to protect yourself. They don't want you to have freedom of speech. Right. They don't want you to have freedom of religion. In Colorado, they don't want us to have our public lands. They already of no. We are saying no. We are saying a big hell no to all of their no's.
So during the Supreme Court hearing to confirm Justice Amy Coney Barrett, who I like very much, there was a lot of hay made over her decision in the Seventh Circuit, I believe, over Cantor v. Barr. Now, just to put this fast, this issue had to do with whether or not nonviolent felons should have their rights restored, their right to Second Amendment. There's been a lot of discussion over this, and it had to do with this man, Robert Cantor. He was selling medical shoe inserts, and he was falsely saying that they were endorsed by Medicare. They weren't, so they got him on felony mail fraud. Well, it's a felony charge, so for the rest of his life, he's a prohibited possessor. And Amy Coney Barrett was arguing in her opinion on the case that that's not historically what the litmus is, whether or not someone is a danger to themselves or is dangerous, period, a danger to other people. That should come into play. I mean, obviously, violent felons are separate, but where it concerns nonviolent felons, the court never said that Robert Cantor was violent. Robert Cantor was never violent. And so a lot of people were trying to smear her over that. That context, now that you have it, my question for you three, do you believe that nonviolent felons, in the context of this discussion with Cantor v. Barr, should have their Second Amendment rights restored?
Absolutely. Let me say this. It's kind of interesting. Republicans are going to have to start taking the lead on a lot of issues that were really created by Democrats.
Remember that. That's good. It's a great point.
Democrats passed those gun control laws targeting African Americans. That was a way to suppress their votes. Think about this. That was a way to suppress their votes. They become a felon, then they cannot get a gun. It could be anything. Now, I know that's a little deep. Y'all haven't caught up with me yet. Now, all of a sudden, Democrats are going to these legislatures wanting to give people on probation parole the right to vote again. Democrats should say, you guys were the first ones to do it anyhow. We're going to come with the Voter Restoration Act, and we're going to do it in a way that those nonviolent offenders that had nothing to do with being a danger to society, but they were stripped of their voting power. They pay their dues. They're on probation. Why not Republicans get ahead on that issue? Because Democrats that issue, and that is furthering keeping minorities, actually keeping everybody, good white and black people, from voting who want to vote. Why not? And what did voting have to do with being on probation or nonviolent offense? What did it take the voting right away from them for? What did it really have to do with it? That's a good question. It was politics. It was voter suppression.
Congresswoman?
Absolutely. I mean, these are nonviolent crimes that we're talking about, and this is a way just to suppress and control people. But they're not stopping with the Second Amendment. I mean, we mentioned the First Amendment in Washington, D.C. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if we start quartering soldiers in the committee hearing rooms. There's plenty in the parking garages at Fort Pelosi. We could bring them on in. And, you know, maybe we could start unreasonably seizing and searching members of Congress. Oh, wait, we're already doing that on the House chambers, right?
Yeah.
We are.
Yes, we are, with the metal detectors and all of that. So it doesn't stop there, and maybe the 19th Amendment is next, and you and I wouldn't have a right to vote.
Yeah, well,
and you can't be called brother or sister. You have to be a sibling.
Exactly. Then you'll get trouble for that on the floor. Congressman, I'm going to have you weigh in on this because I have one more question for you.
Yeah, so when we talk about restoration of rights, Second Amendment rights for nonviolent felons, that is a no-brainer. And we should be doing that. Our problem is we're in a majoritarian, self-governing body. And we're in the minority. When we were in the majority, we screwed up time and time again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
It's all right, Chairman. I'm here with you now.
Yeah, I got Lauren with me now. But here's the deal. We can fix that. We just got to get that majority back, because the Democrats aren't ever going to do that.
No, they won't.
You got to fix it when you get the majority back.
Last question that I have for the panel here. It's been discussed that the administration is going to have this four-pronged assault on our Second Amendment rights, going after the ghost gun issue, going after magazine capacity, because apparently they never heard the idea, you can just swap a mag, limit it to 10 rounds or under, suing manufacturers as well, and then just banning full-on semi-automatic firearms by conflating them with the term assault weapons. So for you two, and then to Representative Jones as well, Congressman, we'll start with you. What are you going to do in Congress to stop this from going forward legislatively?
Well, so what we have to do is we have to stop, because I think the first two things they're really going to go for, I mean, you've got the ghost legislation, but they're going to go after allowing litigation. They're going to, because they think, oh yes, we think we can get the class action litigation on armament, ammunition manufacturers as well as gun manufacturers. We have got to not just work within the procedures, we've got to throw every speed stick down we possibly can. We have to make sure our colleagues in the Senate are there because they have enough votes to stop that in the Senate. So, so we have to do that. We have to rely on the states raising their voices, governors raising their voices, and we need people like you raising your voices loud and clear, rhetorically fighting. You got to say that every time you say fighting or standing tall. Rhetorically fighting and standing tall. That's how we do that. Yeah. And we can win that issue, those two issues.
Well, first of all, I can't even rhetorically stand tall, so thanks for that one. It turns out gun girls come in two sizes, small and extra small. So. You know, this is, they mention assault rifles in this. I hate that term. I hate it so much. An AR is not an assault rifle, it's an Armalite rifle, period. Assault is a behavior and a gun is an object. And so anything that they can do to hijack the language, to abuse the terms, to take control is what they're going to do. And I can't wait until we take that gavel from Speaker Pelosi in 2022. Rhetorically.
Actually, literally. Representative, you get the last word here.
First of all, I'm tired of you guys beating up on tall people. No, Dana, I'm going to be real brief. The bottom line is all of our constitutional rights are under assault. Right. We have to fight it at the state level and the federal level. We have to make sure our legislatures are Republicans so we can draw districts to preserve and protect and send the right people to Washington. And so I look at the whole thing. We're all under attack under the First Amendment, Second Amendment, the entire Bill of Rights. And so those framers of the Constitution got it right. That document has survived every document that has been out there. They got it right. And they didn't have an iPad or a laptop or a cell phone. They were smart men that laid the groundwork. And I think all of us want to protect that Constitution.
That's right. The Constitution offers extreme protection of our rights, and we need to make sure it stays that way. Panel, thank you all so much. I so appreciate
thank you all.
Congressman Biggs, Congresswoman Boebert, and Representative Jones. Thank you so much. Thank you all. God bless.
Samurai is right back. Hello, America. Hello, American conservatives. My name is Genki Fuji. I'm a Japanese journalist and an author of more than 70 books on international relations. I run online World Forecast News Service. I attended the Cpac last year. I respect President Trump and American conservatives. Many Japanese admire President Trump for his courage, inspiration, and energy. President Trump is a real samurai of America. His popularity is still very high in Japan. I'll show you one example. I translated Doug Wiz inside Trump's White House into Japanese. The translation came out shortly after the election last November, but the book sold very well. We have so far sold 50,000 copies in Japan. Egregious election fraud took place last November. Communist China is standing behind it. Now, socialist coup is going on in the US. Freedom of speech is in crisis. The political situation of Japan is currently quite similar to the US. American conservatives and Japanese conservatives should fight back together to defend freedom. We are confronting the cancel culture in Japan too. Leftists are trying to deny totally the Japanese history of 3,000 years. In particular, they dislike samurai spirits. In today's world, Chinese communists are the center of the totalitarian movement. They are destroying freedom all over the world. President Trump and American conservatives fought against the Chinese communists in order to protect the entire free world. We appreciate that, and we Japanese fight together. America has been the beacon of hope for those fighting against communism. Chinese communists are a real threat to us. Chinese military ships are threatening Japanese territorial waters every day. Chinese Communist Empire is another evil empire. Chinese communists want to invade Japan, Taiwan, India, and other democracies in Asia. I have many friends in Taiwan. Taiwan is a fortress of freedom in East Asia. Japan was a nation of samurai. When Commodore Perry came to Japan in 1853, he must deal with tough Japanese samurai to open up then closed country Japan. In today's Tokyo, you don't see samurai anymore. However, spirit of samurai lives on in ordinary Japanese people, not in bureaucrats nor in politicians. Still, samurai spirit is an indispensable element of our tradition. From my viewpoint, you American conservatives are American samurai. The Japanese sword is the symbol of samurai spirit. What the Japanese sword is to samurai is what a gun is to American freemen. Freedom of speech is the foundation of democracy. The First Amendment, freedom of speech, is supported by the Second Amendment, gun right or right to bear arms. Therefore, gun right is the foundation of American democracy. We are Japanese conservatives. We want to build solid samurai-to-samurai alliance with American conservatives to defeat the challenge by China. Let's liberate the people oppressed by communism. United, we defeated the Soviet Union, evil communist empire. The United States and Japan were once adversaries to each other. Nonetheless, Japan has been the most faithful ally of the United States after World War II. A formidable enemy can be a reliable ally. That is Japan. Let's fight together for freedom. Let's slash the cancel culture. Let's start US-Japan Samurai-to-Samurai Alliance.
Ladies and gentlemen, ask yourself, are consumers powerless? The awakening of corporate America. Please welcome your panel. Ohio Representative Warren Davidson. Texas Representative Roger Williams. From Second Vote, Amy Lanham Wilhite. And your moderator, from The Spectator, Amber Athey.
Well, I'm so glad that the three of you are here. Thank you for being here. We are joined by Congressman Roger Williams, Congressman Warren Davidson, and Amy Wilhite from Second Vote. And I think this is such an important topic because at this point, I think everyone realizes what corporations are doing, how they've really started to toe the line of wokeness and progressivism. But what I'm curious about and what I hope you all can help answer is, one, why are companies doing this? And two, how can consumer fight back? Nike is getting rid of shoes that have the Betsy Ross flag on it because it's allegedly racist and a throwback to slavery. You have Disney that's firing Gina Carano for expressing an opinion about political hatred, ironically enough, And I just wonder, is this profitable for companies? Why are they doing this when so many everyday Americans want politics out of their life? They don't want politics injected into everything they do. So maybe one of you could attempt to answer, why the companies are towing this line.
Sure, I'd like to jump right in. So we've seen the left do this for years. I mean, it's not like it just happened. It's been going on. They have a loud voice. They're out there raising all these concerns with these corporations. And so conservatives we're hardworking folks. We want to raise our families. We want to share with them the American principles. And the left has just been very, very vocal over the last several years. And so we've got to become more vocal with what we're doing so that we can get them to listen to us. And there are things that we can do about that. And second vote, we say your first vote is at the ballot box, and your second vote is with your wallet. The power is in our pocket. And Dr. David Black and Congressman Diane Black founded Second Vote 9 years ago when they made a donation at a check register after grocery shopping. And Dr. Black made a donation, and they were walking through the parking lot. And Congressman Black said, "Why did you do that?" He said, "Why wouldn't I do that?" And she said, "Because they actually support Planned Parenthood." So he was like, "What else do I not know?" So he put together this organization, research, and we've got over 1,600 companies that we've researched, and we've scored them on the top conservative issues so that consumers can actually shop their values. When we actually start doing that, we can make a difference to the bottom line of these corporations and these organizations.
And Congressman Davison, you're on the Financial Services Committee, and it turns out apparently that a lot of the shareholders in these companies, when they're making these decisions, are not actually the ones voting for this sort of progressive orthodoxy that's taken over the business world. Can you explain how exactly that works?
Yeah, so if you think about who owns companies, there's a whole shift in terms of what it means to be a fiduciary. You see the word fiduciary responsibility. This would be officers and directors. They have a responsibility, a duty of care to provide a profit maximizing return for whom? For the shareholders, right? And the shareholders get a vote. You see these efforts right now by the woke left to shift that to environmental, social, governance goals, different metrics that go after stakeholders. Stakeholders are not shareholders. It's never well defined, but who is it definitely not? It's not shareholders, right? And they've already used their influence over shareholders because the owners of the companies are often big pension funds, steered by left management of the pension fund. And for example, decided in the 90s to not invest in tobacco companies, it cost the pension fund over $500 billion in missed returns, right? So one of the hearings we had, a few years ago, I asked the representative from the CalPERS Fund, did that represent the best interest of your pensioners? Well, the answer is of course not. Now, he said it did, but facts don't seem to matter in any of these debates. And then behind it, when the pension funds aren't the voters, individual shareholders, let's say you have Fidelity, whoever, Schwab, Robinhood, right? Proxy firms advise these, and there's really only two that have 90% of the market share, ISS and Glass Lewis. And these companies, one's got 60% market share, the others get the rest. They dominate the influence of how those shares are voted. So what you really need is a more democratic access to capital. That's kind of the goal of Robinhood. And then you need people to actually vote the shares. And most of us don't do that. Most of us just, used to get the big paper. Now you get emails and everything else. But it's really important to vote the direction of the company because in the absence of that, the left is voting it. They've got organized and activated, and they're steering the direction of this. Pressure on the management teams to go towards this kind of woke heresy code that's out there.
Yeah, and there's so much hypocrisy involved here as well. These companies that take these public stances that seem to align with wokeism behind the scenes are running their businesses in what these progressives would consider to be a very unwoke way. Disney, for example, filmed its Mulan remake next to the Uyghur concentration camps. And, the NBA bows down to communist China while trotting out its players in Black Lives Matter shirts. So, Congressman Williams, I guess I would ask you, why exactly are the companies able to get away with this? How can they have one public stance while their business practices go against what they're preaching and no one seems to care?
Well, a lot of people care. You know, I'm a small business owner. I'm one of the few in Congress actually still owns a business, employ hundreds of people back in Texas. But the fact of the matter is, you know, I think a lot of businesses, especially Main Street. Now, remember, Main Street business is 70% of the payroll, 75% of the workforce, and Main Street business still runs this country. And and these are bullies. These people bully people. The fact of the matter is, if we get back to Main Street values, and I'm an old school capitalist, we get back there and let competition work. A lot of this we won't have to do. You won't have to bow to these people, for crying out loud. Competition. Let the consumer decide. Let people compete. Take the regulations away from people. And all this conversation about, like you just brought up, about siding with the Chinese and this and that. You know, you can't be all things to all people. You eventually got to go back to your roots. And that's American capitalism, where you can invest 100, lose 100, invest 100, make 100, risk and reward. And we've got to get back to that. Otherwise, the private sector is going to be choked out. Main Street America will be choked out. We'll have these big companies that nobody put their arms around what they stand for or whatever. And I think that's a big problem. And I think that we need to look at these folks as bullies, and we need to stand up to them. And we need to buy, at the end of the day, buy American. That's the name of the game. So.
I wonder, is competition enough now? Because with social media companies, you know, conservatives created a place to speak, and then that was stripped of its web hosting service and shut down by Amazon, and there was collusion among the big tech companies to shut them down. And then with GameStop, you know, Robinhood stopped trading to literally stop people from making money in a legal and acceptable manner. So is there anything that you're doing in Congress, you know, with legislation or measures that you're taking with the force of the government in order to make sure that people have fair access to the marketplace?
You know, one of the big things, and there was a panel earlier on antitrust, but when you think about it, look, we're Republicans, we're not anarchists, right? There are people that basically turn the market into a deity, that we're just going to worship market for the sake of the market. And the reality is our country as a republic was founded to seek virtue, not just the market. And a functioning market has competition. And what's the role of government? In my view and a lot of Republicans' view, it's kind of like if you're watching boxing, it's not boxing when they're over hugging in the corner. The referee's got to go break them up and make them fight. And right now, in market after market, there's nobody engaged in fighting. There's so much concentration, so much power. And you saw that also, you know, whether it's, you know, kind of the swamp, taking care of the swamp in D.C. You alluded to suspending trading. The SEC suspended it for certain shares Friday. But look at the reaction in this COVID. I mean, you could go into Walmart and buy anything. You can buy all kinds of bicycles, but if you want to go to a Main Street bike shop, you couldn't go in. You could have fake flowers delivered from Amazon, but if local florist to deliver live flowers, you couldn't do that. And so the biggest companies got bigger and more profitable, and Main Street has been crippled. That disconnect has really got to end, and a lot of that goes to even our monetary policy. When the government spends too much money, like they just did last night over our objections, that gets printed into dollars, and the Fed grows it, and it's destroying the value of the dollars that we all count on. And a buck isn't going to go as far if we keep doing that.
I think that's a great point about how the pandemic has really shut down small businesses, and corporations in many cases have used these restrictions to amass even more power than ever. Amazon, for example, had its best quarter at the height of the pandemic. So Amy, what is your organization doing to make sure that small businesses survive and in encouraging people to go spend their money there? I mean, it's difficult now because so many of them have either shut down or are unable to do business because of regulations.
Right, and we've always said to shop local. Shop local first. Before you go out to the big box stores, shop local, because those are the folks that you know in your communities. They're supporting your Little League and your high school choir. The money is staying in the community. And you know these folks, and they mostly align with your values. And so these big box organizations that you go shop to, they are funneling these organizations that are attacking our values. We need to quit funding them and shopping with them so that we can align our values with our money is the key here. So we've got to quit shopping at these places. We score them. We've got over 1,600 companies scored. It's secondvote.com. You can go to our website or down an application and search a company score. And you can look on there and see what they're giving of their charitable dollars and what they're supporting. And so we've got to look at that. We've got to take notice. We can't continue to do what we've been doing. We've got to make a difference. And it's us here today. Everybody here, you guys are making the difference. You're here, you want to. But we've got to all do it together. And we can't do it just one time. We can't not go shop here because they did this. We've got to do it for the long haul.
Right. Yeah, it's a lot of work, but with your organization, you can empower yourself and your family members and your community to shop at places that align with your values. Unfortunately, it seems that it's not just private business anymore. There's actually a collusion that's going on with the government. For example, back in 2013, there was Operation Choke Point, where the government was encouraging banks to basically deplatform individuals and deny them access from the economy. So how do we fight back against that problem?
Well, let me bring up that Operation Choke Point. This was a total takeover. Somebody sat down and listed 45 businesses that they didn't think the bank should do business with. You can probably guess what they were: gun stores, finance companies, car dealers, and I may be the only one in Congress that was directly affected by Operation Choke Point, where I had a bank that I'd done business with for 23 years, even served on the board at some point in time, call me one day and say I need to remove all my money in 24 hours out of the bank because they didn't want to finance a car dealer or a congressman. And this happened all over, and it happened to small people. I was fortunately able to get a bank, but it put people out of work. And that was a product of what they call the CFPB, if you follow that, War on Financial Services. And with President Trump, we were able to slow that down. Now it's building back up again. And they're going to be put more people on there where small business cannot borrow money, small business can't have a checking account, they just choke it out. And then you got the big boys running it with the attitude we see, in your face attitude, a socialistic attitude toward the economy. And that's where we are today. And so when you talk about Operation Choke Point, you won't be able to buy a car, you won't be able to buy a gun, you won't be able to start a business, you won't be able to do anything. And then, of course, we know the government owns us and we know the road that takes us. So it's a dangerous time. And you just look about a year ago now, we had an economy that had more jobs than people. How could that ever happen? Did any of us think that would happen? I didn't think so. We had more jobs than people. And now this president has gone in there in 3 weeks, just gutted everything. So we can get back to where we were. But that's why 2022 is so important. We have to make sure we get the House and get the Senate, so we're not having these kind of conversations 2 years from now. So it's a dangerous thing, and you got to watch the big companies because they'll choke the little guy out. And like you said, the little guy is America. The little guy is our friend. The little guy is the payroll. The little guy is the deposit. The little guy is the one that gives you service. And the little guy is the one that knows your name. That's what we're fighting for. That's risk and reward. It's American capitalism.
So let's support them. Let's support them
Totally.
and quit supporting these other organizations.
Yeah, the importance of elections really can't be overstated. You're on the Financial Services Committee with Maxine Waters, Al Green, 3 out of 4 members of the squad. These people have so much control over who businesses get to stay open. Tell us about working with these people. How much control do they want?
Well, it's a tightly controlled committee, as everyone has found out. Maxine Waters rules it with an iron fist. But if you look at the ideas that Roger talked about in Operation Choke Point, the idea that you can cancel people, look, Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez has made the case, like, no one should bank these people, right? And you would think that people that in the past have experienced discrimination, where they couldn't get a loan because they were the wrong people on the end of this people. And look, that's a reality in our country. We shouldn't deny that, but we should fight to make sure we don't go back to that and just replace these people with some different group of people. And when you can't make it illegal on the front end, like guns, they will try to make it illegal on the back end by debanking you, deplatforming you, and canceling you. And if right now they're doing it largely to companies and a handful of individuals, but the reality is you can look at any number of dystopian futures. I don't know, I'm fond of Revelation, It looks pretty scary, and they want to cancel what you can buy. There are people talking about the exact same logic of that today. They want to end cash. They want a central bank digital currency that the government controls. They can see every transaction you've got. And in China, they're already doing this, right? They don't just have a credit score in China. They have a social credit score, right? So they use facial recognition, tracking. They track your location. If you got a cell phone, you essentially got an ankle bracelet where they track your location and everything. And they will say, boy, I don't know. It looks like you might have been at Cpac. Social credit score going down, for example. And that's what they're already doing in China. And there are people on the left that are hoping for that vision to come true in America. So look, policy really does matter. And they know, because that's why the cast of characters you listed, the squad and some of the most outspoken folks on the left are in the Financial Services Committee that Roger and I serve on.
Well, I think there is some cause for optimism because the very hotel that we were sitting in was almost canceled for hosting Cpac, and they just released a statement shortly before we came on stage affirming their right to host people who believe in freedom of speech. Right. So let's reward the companies that, stand up for Americans and go after the elites who want to oppress us. Thank you, Congressman Davidson, Congressman Williams, Amy Wilhite. Thank you so much for doing this panel. It was a wonderful conversation.
Thank
you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Welcome to the 4th Annual Japan Conservative Union Conference.
Ladies and gentlemen, from Fox and Friends Weekend, please welcome Pete Hegseth.
What's going on, everybody? It is awesome to see you. And I have been wearing makeup since 6 a.m. I'm not kidding. When they told me, Pete, you get to talk at 3 p.m., I said, that's like 8 p.m. for me as a morning show host. It's beautiful. Prime time. But I am so grateful to be here. And if you would all turn around and wave to the cameras, because Fox Nation is here too, and we're grateful they are streaming this entire thing. So honored to be here and be a part of this. And if you haven't come by the booth in the morning, come by and say hello to us tomorrow morning on Fox and Friends. We'll be broadcasting all morning long. But I'll tell you, it's been a lot of fun to watch all these speakers. All of them, especially the young folks. Your Charlie Kirks and your James O'Keefes and your Don Jr. How about Dan Bongino? The doers. The doers of the conservative movement that have stood up and said, we're not going to let the left come over, control, and destroy our country, which is what we know they want to do. And we stand on the shoulders of conservative giants at a convention like this, don't we? I mean, William F. Buckley, Ronald Reagan, Newt Gingrich, Rush Limbaugh. Listen, we all have advanced degrees from the Limbaugh Institute of Advanced Conservative Studies. Let's not kid ourselves. Breitbart, Levin, men and women who have had an uncompromising willingness and ability to chart the course for freedom. You know, we call ourselves conservatives, but what are we really? We're freedom lovers. That's what we are. We stand at the Conservative Political Action Conference here, remembering all those people that came before us, so grateful for this nation that they gifted us. You know, I'm convinced, I think I have the best job in the country. Because Fox and Friends gives me the job, I don't know if the title is diner correspondent, breakfast guy, pancake Pete, whatever. They fly me across the country to middle America to have breakfast with wonderful, regular folks across America. Ohio, North Carolina, Texas, Florida, here. We did one in Orlando, Dixie Bells. It was amazing. You should try their biscuits and gravy. Unbelievable. But what I get the privilege of doing is, yeah, I do 3 segments over 3 hours with Fox and Friends, and we're talking politics with people as they have breakfast, getting the voices of average people. But I actually get to spend 4 hours at diner tables with average Americans talking about their lives. Truck drivers, teachers, construction workers, bus drivers, nurses, cops, vets, the people that make America work, that work hard. Who you might call them the forgotten men and women. And what did our president, Donald Trump, what did he call them? The real elites. And he's right. Do you know why he's right? Because when I sit down with these folks, I sit down with a school teacher or a construction worker or a small business owner or a cook at a restaurant or the waitress at the restaurant we're at. And they're not talking about esoteric things that the Ivy League talks about or MSNBC talks about. They're talking about the Bible and faith and prayer and their family, hard work, supporting the police, standing for the anthem, the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the 10th Amendment, the things that our founders understood and loved and cherished. That, to me, is real elitism. That's what our country is grounded in. Active, average citizens who know what really matters. Guess what? The last time they talked about the Bible at the Ivy League was? Like 1840. Seriously, our elite institutions have lost any knowledge whatsoever of what really matters in our country. So I'm honored to have that assignment, to travel across the country and meet those people who would be here if they can, who need you as active activists to fight for them and the basic freedoms that we love in this nation, because they're watching it get ripped away from them. In fact, I'm starting a project, and one of the places where it's getting ripped away most dramatically is the classroom. It's the classroom, people. You know, at Fox Nation, I have a great opportunity to do documentaries about things I really love and I'm passionate about. Biblical history, I've gone to Jerusalem, Bethlehem, the Holy City, talking about Israel, the state of Israel, something I'm very passionate about. I sit down with modern warriors. You know, I once had a 3.5-hour conversation with Rob O'Neill, the guy that shot bin Laden. We had way too many beers, and it was an unbelievable story. And I said, what if every American could hear that story? So I started a series called Modern Warriors, where sometimes we have a few too many beers, and then we have a conversation with vets, and we hear the real story. Well, the project I'm working on right now, it doesn't even have a title yet. The 16,000-Hour War. And it's about the 16,000 hours, that's the working title, that government schools and public schools have our kids from K through 12. And how far they've gone in turning those schools into indoctrination camps for the left. 100%. And as we started doing our research, we thought, well, is this something that started in the 60s, kind of a 60s thing. No. This goes back much further than that. It's a 100-year-old project of progressives. And what's the first thing they removed from the public classroom when they had the opportunity? The Bible. Okay? You talk to anyone, you talk to a progressive today about Philippians, and they say, is that a team from Philadelphia? I mean, they have done everything they can to rip the Bible, prayer, God, the Ten Commandments out of our schools, because they know that's the basis upon which free people stay free. The mixture between Athens and Jerusalem that our founding fathers understood so passionately. They went there first. Now they're at the point, over time, once they've removed that, they've removed the classics, they've removed basic arithmetic. Math is now racist. Now they start asserting their agenda. Critical race theory. 1619 Project. 1776 is evil. The narrative is America is an evil, evil country. Stolen from Indians, built only on the backs of slaves, and therefore completely illegitimate. That is what your kids, if you're not paying attention, are being taught directly. Every single day. And you might say, well, I live in a nice neighborhood. I pay my property taxes. All right, my public school's got a new gym. I really like the teachers. Principal's a nice guy. My community's a little bit more conservative. Nope. Wake up call time. It's your school too. And it might be your private school. If you're not intentional about classical education, Christian classical, Catholic education, homeschooling, whatever it is, your kids are not going to get the views that you believe in. And if I had $1 for every person that I met at a diner who said, well, I raised my kids to be patriots, to be capitalists, to love freedom, to love our founding, love our country, and then I sent them off to so-and-so university, and they came back a socialist, you have to fortify them now. If you don't fortify them now, you will lose them. We are in the fight of our lives, and you've heard that from a lot of speakers today. And people outside these walls, some of the press that are covering this, they don't understand the attachment that conservatives and freedom lovers have to Donald Trump, to the former president. They don't get it. They think it's some sort of a misinformation, cultish thing, cult of personality. Oh, they love the bravado. That's not what it is. I'll explain why we love them in one military analogy. I was a platoon leader in Iraq. I was an infantry platoon leader in the Army. And the one situation you know is the most dangerous situation that you don't want to find your platoon stuck in is what's called a near ambush. You're walking through a neighborhood and you walk into a near ambush, meaning the enemy has the high ground, they're concealed, and you're stuck in what's called the kill zone on the X, and they've got you pinned down. Rifles, grenades, everything. You're right there in the kill zone. You don't want to be there. You're dead if you're in the kill zone, for the most part, unless you act. Okay? The battle drill for being in the kill zone of a near ambush is definitely not crouch down and hope you survive. Because that's never going to happen. Your only option is to immediately seek cover, immediately pop your grenade, throw it, and then charge toward the enemy that you still can't see. That's your only option if you want to survive. This is all metaphorically, of course, for the media out there. Right? Caveat necessary. It's your only hope. All right? Well, Republicans for decades, for years, have sat in the kill zone and said, just kind of like us. We're okay. We're not that bad. We're okay. We're nice behind our podiums, dressed up like this, hey, everybody, we're going to cut taxes just a little bit more. It doesn't work. Donald Trump said it's time to throw the grenades and charge at the enemy. That's why. That's why. You want a leader that believes in you, that listens to you, that listens to the people at the diners and understand what they love about this country, and that is willing to actually fight for it. And what happens in a near ambush if you seize the initiative and charge at the enemy? Pretty soon they have to pop out of the tall grass, out of their concealed positions. Now you're on the offensive, and and what do? They just scream, you're a racist. Right? They call you names. They expose themselves for the fake news media that they are. They come out and just say, you're right, we are socialists. It's exactly what they do. We know who they are, and Donald Trump has exposed them, which means we have to have the spine to follow through on that fight, because what we're defending is not difficult to defend. It's the flag we love and the freedoms we cherish and the faith we have and the families we want to protect. I am out of time, but God bless you. Fight every single day. Do not wait for Election Day. Do whatever you can in your school board, in your classroom, in your community. The left has the positions. We have the principles. We need to take the positions back as well. And damn it, take the high ground. Thank you guys very much. I appreciate it. God bless you guys.
Hi everybody, my name is Eduardo Bolsonaro. I'm the son of the President of Brazil, Jair Bolsonaro, and also the most voted ever congressman here in Brazil. And how I'm fighting back against communism. We are here fighting back, occupying spaces and all the opportunities that we have on the media, internet, everywhere. Going into universities, talking with the young people, and I think our main tool that we have to do that is the truth. Telling the truth to the people is how my father got elected, not using even $1 million. And I think this is the way that we have to fight that. They know that, so what do? They try to censorship us, as we are looking nowadays, especially by the big tech. So we don't have a solution for that, but here we are using bills, trying to approve new laws, copying US, copying Poland, trying to make sure that we are going to have our freedom of speech, not only on the internet, but everywhere. So thanks God that we are here, and I also have a bill here criminalizing Nazism and communism. Thank you, see you later.
Hello, dear friends at Cpac. My name is Stephen Bartulica. I'm a native of St. Joseph, Missouri, and now serve as a member of the Croatian Parliament here in Zagreb. I'm sending this message to you from the Parliament in Croatia. Behind me is a painting of the first democratically elected Parliament in Croatia from 1990. My main message to you is that socialism promises heaven and it delivers hell. And I'm worried what's happening in the United States under this new administration. Unfortunately, President Trump wasn't re-elected, and sadly we have the left in power. I would encourage all of you to get active, to raise your voices against what you see as a clear threat to the American way of life. I'm very grateful that I was able to be born and raised in the United States. Now I live in Croatia with my family. But the legacy of socialism I see on a daily basis here. And it's much more destructive than ordinary people can imagine. It corrupts people's moral character. It leaves a devastating effects behind in so many different ways. And so I encourage you to stay active, to support conservative candidates in the United States and throughout the world. And we would be more than happy to host the Cpac. All the best.
The difference just 1 month makes. We've watched President Biden, just by the stroke of a pen, eliminate more than 1 million jobs.
Following that action, TC Energy Corporation announced it would eliminate more than
106 people,
nearly 1,000 workers to lose lucrative jobs that many had for decades.
We felt the pain of what he is doing. China took our jobs. They've given us this virus. They should be held accountable for doing such. The Democrats at this point are showing that they are the pro-China party. Under Leader McCarthy's leadership with the China Task Force, other efforts, Republicans have been tough on China. That's the difference between parties.
Everybody can join with us. We are going to continue to listen to the forgotten woman and man across this country, and we'll continue to put America first.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Winning Back America, an interview with Indiana Representative Jim Banks and leader Kevin McCarthy. Please welcome the chairman of the American Conservative Union, Matt Schlapp.
Pete Hegseth, he's not too bad, is he?
Oh, excellent.
Kevin McCarthy was in the back saying, I don't know, I see some good candidate there. I don't know, right?
I watched him out front. I watched that passion down there, and I'm thinking, what district can I run him for?
Speaking of that, Election Day was rough in some ways, really rough. But in other ways, it really gave me great optimism for the future. And the greatest story of election night was getting so close to getting that gavel from Nancy Pelosi. Did it shock you that you got that close?
We got closer than anybody thought we could get. They said we were going to lose 20 seats that night. No one said we'd win seats. My dearest friend, who's a hardcore Republican, said that best we could do is lose 10. But this is the little secret. You know why we won that? President Trump worked on all these races, and let me give you a little secret and a little facts, because I want you to tell your friends, especially your liberal friends. This is the first time since 1994 no incumbent Republican lost. We beat 15 Democrats, and you know who the 15 Democrats lost to? Conservative women and conservative minorities, each and every one of them. And what happened, even when President Trump was sick with COVID, he called me this night in the hospital and said, Kevin, I got to keep doing this. Because we couldn't do the rallies, right? He would do these rallies over the phone for each district. And he'd have the candidate on and he would talk. And it would turn out the votes. And that's what shocked, because all the polls said we'd lose. But election day, the voters said, no, there's a new path.
Awesome, awesome. And I have to say, these two gentlemen probably won't like me saying it, but I say it on a regular basis because it kind of puts you on the spot. But I think we have a great chance of getting the majority back.
Not a chance. We're going to get the majority back. We're 5 seats away. I would bet my house. Listen, we were 31,751 votes. My personal house. Yeah. Don't tell my wife, but I would bet it. Listen, do you want to retire Nancy Pelosi?
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to end the socialism in this country? Win the House, 5 seats, the closest. This is the smallest majority the Democrats have had in 100 years. We could do it.
Jim Banks, you're, by the way, both your scores with the American Conservative Union. You have been a great champion up there in the House.
This has probably been higher than mine.
Yes, a tinge. It's a tinge. I was trying to be so careful. It's a tinge higher. By the way, a lot of these people we've had on the stage, Mike Pompeo had an outstanding record in the House of Representatives. Ron DeSantis, someone I call now America's governor. And I guess what I'm learning from that is when you see conservatives get put in positions of power, what you realize about the conservative philosophy when well executed, it just makes a lot of sense. What is wrong with these colleagues of yours on the other side of the aisle that I hear them talk and I'm like, where did they grow up? Like, where did they learn this stuff? Is it shocking to you?
Yeah, you got to wonder, where do they come from in America where they don't like America like we do, right? That's what I love about coming to Cpac. I'm reminded every time I come to Cpac why we're the right party, why the Republican Party is on the right side of history. Like we hear a lot about the cancel culture these days and identity politics. Let me say, if you identify yourself as an American, you belong in the Republican Party.
Yeah, that's right.
Period.
You know, I thought about, I chair this group called the American Conservative Union. I love the name. I love the name because the left thinks we're a union and they always invite us to their parties and then they find out we're not that kind of union. And then I love the fact, because I love the idea of being a conservative, but I don't know what your response is to this, but sometimes I think that like the conservative word isn't as important because we love America and it kind of stops there. You agree?
Agree with all right. You'll define, and Jim is an amazing individual. This is the type of American you want. He runs the biggest conservative group in Congress, Republican Study Group. He's a veteran, served in the Navy in Afghanistan, and he serves his country today because he believes in the exceptionalism of America. And that's what defines this difference between the conservatives and the socialists.
Right. Yeah, I almost wonder if we could think about the way the press likes to say Republicans are fractured. Here's the truth, and you all know it, not all of you are Republicans in this crowd, is we're actually getting everybody who just doesn't like communism, socialism, and Marxism. Would you agree?
That's totally true. Let me tell you, this week a poll came out. I'm going to brag on him a little bit because he just bragged on me. The most popular Republican figure in Congress today is Kevin McCarthy. Let me tell you who the least popular Republicans in the party are today. They're those few, very few, Matt.
They're stittering out there, I just want you to know.
There's very few Republicans. The least popular in our party are the ones who want to erase Donald Trump and Donald Trump supporters from our party. No. And let me tell you, if that happens, we won't win back the majority in 2022. We definitely won't win back the White House in 2024 if we erase Donald Trump. But you have a leader right here. I'm the conservative leader. And you and I both know, Matt, and for decades, the conservative leader fights with the Republican leader. Not anymore, because Kevin McCarthy is the right leader for the right time to win back the majority. He's going to be the best Speaker of the House we've had in a generation.
Good guy.
Kevin would like you to keep talking.
Yeah, I'll give you the rest of the. I yield the rest of the time.
I didn't come here to suck up to Kevin McCarthy because I tell him the truth at times too. Yeah. I want to tell you the truth. It is great to be in Florida where you guys are normal, you're open, I don't have to wear a mask anymore. That's so much better than California.
Did you guys like it when Kevin McCarthy said it was the right thing for Donald Trump to be at Cpac? I don't know what your response is to that. And we're getting closer. The other thing we were just talking about backstage is, and we talked about this with Ambassador Lighthizer and with Senator, oh my God, it's escaping me. The new senator from Tennessee. Come on, help me. Bill Haggerty, a great man.
Oh,
I got a lot on my mind, folks. There's a lot going on. What we were talking about is the fact that this new Republican Party, this new coalition is what I really call it. We're the ones focused on the working man and woman, the forgotten men and women. Corporate America is so woke, and we're focused on the actual workers.
That's exactly true. There's a new poll that came out, and it literally says the Republican Party grew with the blue-collar workers because it was a forgotten man and woman that Donald Trump listened to the voice that no one else would listen to. And we're never going to forget those people. And that's what we're focused on. Look what happened this morning at 2 a.m. Nancy Pelosi put about a $2 trillion bill in. There was a vote on the floor. She put a tunnel in Silicon Valley that has nothing to do with COVID into the bill. We wanted to take that money and give it to the kids to get them back in school. It's an easy discussion, right? We want people back to work, back to school, back to health. Pelosi wants to put more tunnels, more waste, and the Democrats voted for it. It's a clear place. Who's standing for the American public and who's standing for corporations? It's the Republican Party today, and it's what we're going to be tomorrow and in the future, and that's why America is going to be stronger, because we'll put America first.
Yeah, Matt, that's exactly true. Donald Trump taught us many things. More than anything else, he made the Republican Party the party of the working class for the first time since Reagan. He changed the political paradigm. The Democrat Party today is the party of multinational corporations, of big business, of Wall Street, of Silicon Valley.
China.
And they're the pro-China party, putting American workers last for the interests of our greatest adversary and Wall Street interests ahead of the interest of working class, working men and women in this country. I grew up, my dad is a retired factory worker. He made axles all of his life. He identified as a Democrat for most of his life. He didn't like a lot of the Republican leaders. Still Donald Trump. He was for Donald Trump. And we have to keep voters like my dad in the fray. And under Kevin McCarthy's leadership, under my leadership, we're going to continue to be the party of the working class for a long time to come.
There's something really true out there. I don't care if you're conservative, liberal, or what else. I do not know what the Chinese party and government has on the Democrats, but it is so powerful. It is so powerful. It is scary. They put Eric Swalwell on the Intel Committee. I've been in a briefing, just myself and Nancy Pelosi. Anyone that's ever heard that briefing would not have him on that committee and would question, would even keep him in Congress. But that's what's happening in the Democratic Party. What's the first thing that Joe Biden does? He calls the Chinese Xi, and he placates to them. He says now what they do on human rights, oh, it's okay, it's a cultural thing. He won't stand up for what they're doing to our universities. He's not. China wins that election if Biden gets in. That's the problem what happened. And I don't know what they have on the Democratic Party, but it's powerful. And we need people like Jim Banks, that was part of the China task force, that has a plan to actually stand up to them so the next century is the American century.
And it's a great video. Good work. So let's get to this question of this radical policy that's hitting the House floor and hitting the Senate floor. I'm sure it's shocking to all of you. We've been all kind of numb since the election, and then you start seeing, will the Democrats be as radical in their policy proposals as they told us?
Worse.
And we're always such nice people. We say, oh, come on, they're going to not be that way. And then it starts coming. And so radical on this most recent COVID bill, they can't even keep their own members together. Losing members from Maine and stuff, that must be interesting. Are they starting? Do you see a chance that maybe in the House it's almost impossible because Queen Pelosi is too tough and she's, she keeps them together. But if you can make the rhetorical points in the House, maybe there's a couple senators that are beginning to realize that being a socialist isn't so good at the ballot box.
The only bipartisan vote last night was against that COVID bill. Less than 9% of it had anything to do with COVID. It was all a waste. But what else is happening here is, when you put a bill out, you'll see the HR number. They reserve the HR 1 for the most important bill. You know what the Democrats have? HR 1 is to take over our entire election system. What they've done is changed the rules in Congress that have never been changed before to take away the right of the minority to even have an amendment because they're afraid of our idea. Jim Banks is fighting this with the Republican Study Group. You're the very first one that came out against that election.
And we have a bill. The Republican Study Committee introduced a bill, the Save Democracy Act. I hope you'll take a look at it. Almost half of the American people today don't trust our elections after the fiasco
for good reason
that happened in November. And we're trying to restore. We have a moral duty as Republicans to restore trust in our election system. Let me tell you, HR 1 would do the opposite, and that's what the Democrats are going to ram through the House next week.
And if I could give, and I'm sure you both would agree, if I could give you one charge in leading Cpac, it would be do all you can to any member that we have any influence over to explain to them that it's unacceptable to have this unconstitutional power grab on elections, so that what we saw this election will be what you will see every single election. And we have to fight it. Now, in order to fight it, we got to pick up more seats. We started talking about politics. Let's end this conversation by talking about politics. I stand corrected. It's not if we get the majority, it's when we get the majority. Tell us your blueprint for getting that done.
Listen, we're going to continue to do exactly what we did in the last election. We elected more Republican women in the history of America before, just last time. We're going to continue to build in every other district. But if you look at history, there's only 5 seats to win the majority. Next election, we have redistricting, where we do a census every 10 years. They redraw all the lines. You know who loses seats? All these left-running governors, California, Illinois, New York. You know who gains? 2 seats in Florida, 3 in Texas. History says the party in power, whoever wins the White House, on the first off-year election, on average, loses 27 seats. In 2009, I was the deputy whip and I was the recruitment chair. It was taking us 40 seats to be able to win the majority. Nobody believed we could. You know what happened that election? We beat 63 Democrats. So let's not settle for 27. Let's double that number and make sure we have it for the next 10 years.
Well, I think we should give a warm Cpac welcome to those champions in the House of Representatives who are fighting the socialist agenda. We appreciate what you're doing. Mr. Leader, Mr. Chairman, keep up the great work and thanks for being at Cpac.
Thank you all very much.
Dear fellow conservatives, my name is Nicolas Santo and I'm the director of the Center for Fundamental Rights, a conservative research institute based in Budapest, Hungary. And I think, as all of you know, communism attacked Hungary after the Second World War, and despite a heroic struggle and the 1956 revolution, it took almost 40 years to finally cure ourselves of the virus. And now, 30 years after our return to freedom, storm clouds are gathering on the horizon again. We see an increasing signs of a new kind of Marxism plaguing our friends within the Western Alliance. Leftist forces have deployed a disinformation campaign against Hungary, quite reminiscent of Soviet times. Entire networks of so-called NGOs and biased media smear every step we take. Corrupt leftist politicians demand action based on lies. Fellow Hungarian patriots, including our center, of course, is at the forefront of combating this campaign. But leftists seek to undermine our core values: the sanctity of life, freedom of conscience, free speech, patriotism, and the family itself. But at last year's Cpac in Washington, D.C., I truly felt that these values are strong and they connect us on both sides of the Atlantic. Therefore, I think it is crucial for us, conservatives, to work together, because the left has been networking globally for decades with the explicit aim of undermining everything we learn. And I can assure all fellow conservatives in America that they have friends here in the heart of Europe. Be sure that the best days are yet to come. Our proudest moments are yet to be, and our most glorious achievements are just ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen, our next panel is My Pronouns Are First Place in Winning, Protecting Women's Sports. Please welcome student athlete Linnea Saltz, South Dakota State Representative Rhonda Milstead, and from the American Principles Project, Terry Schilling.
Thank you so much, Cpac. We love being here. The theme of this year is obviously America Uncanceled, and there's nothing more under attack today than women's sports. So we're going to have a great conversation here with two heroes of mine going. Linnea, so you're a female athlete, NCAA Division I. What's been your experience with sports? Have you had to compete against any males? Tell us your story.
So the vast majority of my time in NCAA Division I athletics, I didn't. It wasn't really an issue until my senior year, which had been my fourth and last year of eligibility in the NCAA. My coaches called me over the summer of 2019 and let me know that an athlete that I had previously been seeing competing in the male category was now going to be competing in the female category against me, myself, my teammates, and every other woman athlete in the NCAA. And it was really just a discouraging moment for me to hear that someone that had been running not only 10 seconds faster than me in my event, but running a world record time for women previously as a male, now competing against us as females, was really just an interesting kind of situation, and it was really hard to, understand.
No, it's incredible. So, Rhonda, you're a state legislator in South Dakota, and you've introduced legislation on this issue. When did you first become aware of it, and why did you bring forth this legislation?
Well, I think the awareness, the first term that I served, there was a bill that was introduced that failed. But this year, when it was put out there was a bit of a pause, but then there was an excitement because this is important. We live in America, and our girls are important. I want to make sure that people know that.
No, that's exactly right. Linnea, these threats are nonstop. They've been going on for the past 10 years, and progressives have been making progress across all 50 states. What is female sports going to look like in 10 to 20 years if we don't stop these guys?
I feel as if women are going to be watching their own sports from the sidelines. We're no longer going to be wanting to compete in sports where we don't feel as if we're competing on a level playing field. The reason that I decided to speak out about something like this is because fairness in women's sports is so important to me. And if we're allowing biological males that possess physiological advantages over biological females to compete in the female category, we're no longer going to be interested in competing and being a part of sports, which is such a big part of my identity, as well as other females across the nation as well. And so if we continue to allow this to happen, things like Title IX are just going to be reversed, and women aren't going to want to be in competitive sports anymore, and it's just going to completely go against what we stand for. And so it's kind of upsetting to see.
No, it's absolutely insane. Yeah, thank you. Please give her an applause. So I'm going to go back to you real quick, because I think that people take what they see on TV, sports and everything for granted, and they don't realize how much work goes into it. Can you just tell the audience, everyone that's tuning in from across the country, what's your daily training routine look like? I mean, you got to work hard, right?
Yeah, and so I had made a comment about my last season of eligibility, which would have been last year. Because of COVID, I have been able to extend my eligibility, so now I'm a fifth-year grad student using my last season in the NCAA. And so I work full-time now. And so I'm waking up at 5:45 in the morning. I'm going to practice for 2 hours. I'm then driving to work, where I work all day, and then I'm doing online school because that's the world we live in right now. And I'm spending the amount of time that a typical person would at work, but I'm also doing the same thing just because I want to be as good as I can at my sport. And so to know that I'm sacrificing things that other students don't have to sacrifice, like as silly as this sounds, never had a spring break. That's a time where I'm either training or competing. I'm not going out on vacations with friends. I'm not doing any of these things because I'm sacrificing as much time as I can because I'm dedicated to being the best that I can in my sport. And so I feel as if women shouldn't have to be forced to compete against people that have a different biological advantage, like I said, because it's just going to make us not motivated and not want to we're not going to want to stay in the sport that we love so much.
So Rhonda, you're somewhat of a champion on this issue. You've introduced legislation, you're taking on the media, you're taking on all these crazy people that are passing this legislation, and your bill in South Dakota just passed the House, 50-17. Right, guys? But at that same time, the same week that South Dakota is doing the right thing, the House of Representatives in Washington, D.C. passes the Equality Act, which would destroy girls' sports by letting boys compete against them. What would you say to Nancy Pelosi and all of the Democrats who voted for the Equality Act?
You want me to be fair, right?
Please no cuss words. This is a family program.
You know, I think that if we look at the Equality Act for what it means, it's equality. You look at women's sports and the fairness goes right across. If you're equal biologically, if you have the same level of strength, you have the same level of endurance, that's equal. Just because you might identify as something else doesn't make you equal. So we have to recognize equal for what it is, and then the Equality Act can work, but we can't make it mean something it doesn't. Right. That's what'll work for these girls.
You know, Linnea, the thing about this issue is it's so treacherous, right? I mean, you take a step out in this arena and the media immediately tries to brand you as a bigot or a hateful person. So I spent the whole day with you today. You don't seem like a hateful person. What would you say to transgendered athletes who want to compete and want to do their sports? Is that you hate transgender people? Is that why you're doing this? Or do you just want to, tell the audience?
Just kind of piggybacking off of what Rhonda said, is that there's no part of me that doesn't want to be inclusive. Obviously, I'm looking for proposed solutions that would create inclusion for everybody, but not at the exclusion of biological women. We can't just have... we use this like trigger word as inclusion, but people don't realize that by being inclusive in that sense, it is exclusion to people like myself. And so we don't want men's and co-ed sports, we want men's and women's sports. And that's why there is separation of sex within sports as well. And so I think that gender identity doesn't erase physiological advantages, and that's just something we have to remember.
All right, Rhonda. So at American Principles Project, we're polling nonstop. We're a political organization. So we found that this issue of not letting boys compete in girls' sports is like an issue for the good guys. Right now, there are 24 states that have introduced this legislation similar to yours that would say women's sports. Why isn't it 50? Like, what's holding these other legislators up? Why aren't more states introducing this legislation to protect our daughters' opportunities?
I guess I'd like to say that it takes wisdom, it takes courage, and it takes an exercise of common sense. And the fact that there are 24 states that are doing it, let's let that be encouraging. Let's let a momentum build up. In our house, it was 74% of our people looked at it from a common sense perspective. It's going to create, and that's what protects these girls. And just as Linnea said, it is not exclusive. It is inclusive for everybody. If we just let things go back how they were, and the way Title IX was set up, that there are differences. Let's recognize the differences and treat equality, apples to apples. That's what we're trying to do.
That's right. What would you say to a legislator or a politician who's like on the fence and hasn't really been speaking out about this? What would be your advice to them?
Well, they could talk to their families. If you talk to fathers, mothers, grandparents, they want their girls to be able to compete. It's a dream, to be able to challenge yourself to your personal best. And no one will be able to do that if you're not competing equally. So if they would talk to the people in their districts and their states, they're going to find out that this does matter. It's a very silent majority. And then also, if you don't have any grandparents or kids.
KT Trainer, thank you.
It'll prove it.
Yeah, I think that's right. So we're almost done here, and I just want to say, if there's anyone out there in the Cpac audience that wants to get engaged in this fight, they want to protect their daughter's sports, text America to 313131. We'll get you signed up, engaged. We'll get you involved in your state legislatures. We got to get this across the finish line, and we got to get this. We got to get it done. Thank you. All right, Linnea, closing thoughts. What do you want to tell the audience?
Just that you need to listen to people like myself that do have stories, because as you said before, that when you come out and speak about things like this, people just all of a sudden come up with all of these different negative titles as to why I'm talking about it. But what I experienced is what I experienced, and you can't devalue my story. And I just want to be able to be an advocate for other girls that are, like you said, being the silent majority, because we're afraid to speak out about it because of the negative repercussions we may have. But there are a lot of people, based on your poll and just based off conversations that I've had, people are on our side. And it's all about being inclusive, but like I said, making sure that women aren't being discounted either.
Rhonda?
I think there's an underlying message in all of this. Sports is important because sports builds confidence. Sports builds self-discipline, perseverance. People that are involved in sports go on to succeed in a lot of other ways. It's important to see that. But the underlying message here to me is that if we allow males to compete in girls' sports, we're telling the females that they aren't important. And what is that going to do? Risen to governor. Our governor is a woman. She's a fantastic governor. And we have other women. We have women congressmen. And they have done those things, and largely in part because of sports, because what it did for them. So if we take that away from them, we're telling them that it's not important anymore, and it takes hope away. On the flip side of that, if you have males who are competing against females, and they're winning because they have a physical advantage, we're telling them that it's okay to be superior and almost to bully. And I don't think that's the message we want to send to any child in this country.
Well, Linnea, Rhonda, you guys are two heroes to me, and I'm sure you're going to be heroes audience. Thank you guys so much for this conversation.
Thank you.
Y'all get one apiece?
I can't have those. I'm sick. I need something to cook me. I can't have those.
You can't shut up.
Hello, friends. My name is Ivan Espinosa, and I'm spokesperson here in Congress for Vox, Spain's Conservative Party. I would like to take this opportunity to greet you and wish you a great Cpac. Now, I hope you're able to take advantage of Cpac to exchange ideas, to exchange your best practices, to put forward whatever it is you're doing properly in your own market so we can all learn from each other. As you know, the left, the progressives around the world are doing that already, and they're working really hard to try to defeat us in different places. So hopefully we're going to be able to learn from each other, we're going to be able to share whatever it is we're doing right, and we're going to be able to defend and build better platforms for our future, for our families, and for our nations. Have a great Cpac and enjoy your time here.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem.
Afternoon. You all look wonderful. Well, it is such an honor to be with all of you here today. My guess, oh, thank you. Now listen. My guess is that a year ago, most of you had no idea who I was. But unlike the DC media, I'm sure that you all at least know that there are 2 Dakotas, and that I'm the governor of the warmer one. Now, I'm here today to share some of the lessons from my state. I think the main question that needs to be answered this weekend is, why does America need conservatives? Now, the question of why America needs conservatives can be answered by just mentioning one single year. And that year is 2020. Now, everybody knows that almost overnight, we went from a roaring economy to a tragic nationwide shutdown. President Trump had created 7 million new American jobs.
And when were you today?
We had the lowest unemployment rate in over half a century, and unemployment rates for Black, Hispanic, and Asian Americans reached the lowest levels in history. More than 10 million people had been lifted out of poverty and out of welfare, and all of that changed in March. Now, most governors shut down their states. What followed was record unemployment, businesses closed, most schools were shuttered, and communities suffered. And the U.S. economy came to an immediate halt. Now, let me be clear. COVID didn't. Government crushed the economy. And then, just as quickly, government turned around and held itself out as the savior. And frankly, the Treasury Department can't print money fast enough to keep up with Congress's wish list. But not everyone has followed this path. For those of you who don't know, South Dakota is the only state in America that never ordered a single business or church to close. We never instituted a shelter-in-place order. We never mandated that people wear masks. We never even defined what an essential business is, because I don't believe that governors have the authority to tell you that your business isn't essential. Now, South Dakota schools are no different than schools everywhere else in America. But we approached the pandemic differently. From the earliest days of the pandemic, our priority was the students, their well-being and their education. When it was time to go back to school in the fall, we put our kids in the classroom. Teachers, administrators, parents, and the students themselves were of one mind to make things work for our children. And the best way to do that was in the classroom. Now, in South Dakota, I provided all of the information that we had to our people, and then I trusted them to make the best decisions for themselves, for their families, and in turn, their communities. We never focused on the case numbers. Instead, we kept our eye on hospital capacity. Now, Dr. Fauci, he told me that on my worst day, I'd have 10,000 patients in the hospital. On our worst day, we had a little over 600. Now, I don't know if you agree with me, but Dr. Fauci is wrong a lot. Even in a pandemic, public health policy needs to take into account people's economic and social well-being. Daily needs still need to be met. People need to keep a roof over their heads. They need to feed their families, and they still need purpose. They need their dignity. Now, my administration resisted the call for virus control at the expense of everything else. We looked at the science, the data, and the facts, and then we took a balanced approach. Truthfully, I never thought that the decisions that I was making were going to be unique. I thought that there would be more who would follow basic conservative principles, but I guess I was wrong. Ask yourself this question: how far will people go to enforce mask mandates? Once you start lockdowns, how long can you sustain them? In South Dakota, we had some cases in March and April, but the virus didn't really hit the Midwest until late fall. Should we have kept people in their homes from March onward? Of course not. You know, it's important to ask these questions. We have to show people how arbitrary these restrictions are, and the coercion, the force, and the anti-liberty steps that governments take to enforce them. Often, the enforcement isn't based on facts. Justifying these mitigation efforts has been anything but scientific. Now, many in the media, they criticized South Dakota's approach. They labeled me as ill-informed, that I was reckless, and even a denier. Some even claimed that South Dakota was as bad as it gets anywhere in the world when it comes to COVID-19. That is a lie. The media did all of this while simultaneously praising governors who issued lockdowns, who mandated masks and shut down businesses, applauding them as having taken the right steps to mitigate the spread of the virus. At one point, I appeared on George Stephanopoulos' Sunday show. I don't know if you watched that. No, you don't? Shocker. He had just wrapped up a segment with New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, where he asked Cuomo to give me some advice on how to deal with COVID. Now seems like a really good time to remind everyone of what Governor Cuomo was doing in New York. On March 25th, Cuomo ordered COVID patients into nursing homes, and he prohibited the staff from testing people before admitting them. 9 days later, he pushed legislation prohibiting nursing home lawsuits over COVID deaths. 6 days after that, he prohibited nursing homes from sending COVID patients to the nearby Naval Hospital ship or the field hospital, both of which were essentially empty. Now, 8 days after that, the first deaths started to show up. And on January 28th of this year, the New York Attorney General announced that Cuomo
Back to Marine. What's up, buddy?
significantly undercounted the number of COVID-related deaths in nursing homes by as much as 50%. To make matters worse, they tried to cover it up. Now that is the media's COVID hero. And by the way, he also earned an Emmy, and he wrote a book on his COVID response. So who really needed the advice? Again, in South Dakota, we did things differently. We applied common sense and conservative governing principles. We never exceeded our hospital capacity, and our economy is booming. We have the lowest unemployment rate in the nation. We are number one in the nation for keeping jobs, keeping businesses open, and keeping money in the pockets of our people. The people of South Dakota kept their hours and their wages at a higher rate than workers anywhere else in the nation, and our schools are open. America needs conservatives at the state and at the local level, but we also need conservatives at the highest level of government too. In America, we have government of, by, and for the people. Our founding fathers established our national constitution, and the people of individual states crafted their own constitutions that place specific limits on the role of government. Those limits are essential to preventing government officials from trampling on people's rights. The people themselves are primarily responsible for their own health and their well-being. They are the ones who, entrusted with expansive freedoms, the free will to exercise their rights to work, worship, and to earn a living. No governor should ever dictate to their people which activities are officially approved or not approved. And no governor should ever arrest, ticket, or fine people for exercising their freedoms. Governors and members of Congress and the President have a duty to respect the rights of the people who elected them. But it seems these days that conservatives are the only ones who know what that means. Personal responsibility is considered a God-given gift in South Dakota. Personal responsibility is not a term that conservatives have abandoned. When I was preparing to come speak with you, I came across some fascinating remarks that were made back in 1962. Listen to this. The Declaration, above all else, was a document not of rhetoric, but of bold decision. The Declaration unleashed not merely a revolution against the British, but a revolution in human affairs. This doctrine of national independence shook the globe, and it remains the most powerful force anywhere in the world today. That's fantastic, right? Those are the words of Democrat President John F. Kennedy. Is there any wonder why Ronald Reagan often said, "I didn't leave the Democratic Party, it left me"? There was a time when both political parties clung to certain fundamental principles. But today we seem not to even share the most basic ideals. America needs people who will stand up for these fundamental principles. America needs conservatives. It's easy to look back on 2020 and remember all of the issues that we had with COVID. But COVID is only one piece of a very problematic puzzle. It certainly showed us how deep the divide really is and how thin the barrier is between freedom and tyranny. But there was a worse movement that was happening in 2020, and it's an ongoing problem. Across America these last several months, we watched an organized, coordinated campaign to remove and eliminate all references to our nation's founding and many other parts of our history. Rather than looking to the past to help improve our future, some are trying to wipe away the lessons of history, lessons that we should be teaching to our children and to our grandchildren. Now, this approach focuses exclusively on our forefathers' flaws, and it fails to capitalize on the opportunity to learn from their virtues, and they had many of those. By discrediting the individuals who formed America's founding principles, they create doubt, and then they can remake America into a very different political image. It is our job to help explain why this is wrong. Remember, America wasn't founded for the personal gain or personal power of men like Washington, Adams, and Jefferson. The signers of the Declaration of Independence put their lives and their sacred honor on the line, and they affirmed people's God-given freedoms. Still today, the Declaration of Independence is one of the most important statements of purpose ever written. And not just because it serves as the justification for our independence to the entire world, but also because it has led to our prosperity, and it's inspired many other nations and peoples to seek freedom. We the people have consented to a government that will serve all of us equally, a government that will protect and uphold our God-given rights, as well as the fundamental rights enumerated by our Constitution. It is our duty to renew our commitment to these ideals and to pass them on to those who come after us. These ideals cannot be dismissed as the opinions of flawed men. Our founders had their flaws, certainly. But to use those flaws to condemn their ideals and the greatest constitution that the world has ever seen is both unjust and it's self-defeating. How many of us can even live up to our own ideals? Without the words, the beliefs, and the sacrifices of those few, the world would not have a ringing example of true freedom. To attempt to cancel the founding generation is an attempt to cancel our own freedom. Let's always remember, America is good. Freedom is better than tyranny. We are unique. We are exceptional. And no American should ever, ever apologize for that. We should illustrate to the world that people thrive when government is limited, and people's ingenuity and their creativity is unleashed. We should also remind the world what happens when tyranny and oppression are allowed to thrive. These days, too many are embracing China, a nation that crushes freedom of speech and religion. China literally places religious minorities in internment camps. China responded to the COVID virus by trying to cover it up. And one of their mitigation strategies was to weld doors shut to lock families in their homes. Friends of China are not friends of freedom. Make no mistake, America's leadership is needed in the world. So now let's have a really candid conversation. Everyone in this room and those listening at home, they know that America needs leaders right now. Those leaders need wisdom. They need the confidence to stand up for our principles and a will to act. Those leaders need to be conservative. We have a lot of work to do in the coming months. What may have worked in the past is not good enough anymore. It's not enough to say vote for us because your pocketbook will be bigger, or because we'll cut your taxes and reduce the regulations, or because we'll fight against abortion or Obamacare or whatever else. I'm not saying that these things aren't important. They are among the pillars of what we believe. But conservatives must lead the nation away from borrowing against our children's future. We must put an end to the accounting gimmicks used to deceive people. Joe Biden has been in politics for 50 years. At that time, our national debt was roughly $450 billion. Today, that's pretty close to what we pay in interest on our national debt. Everyone is to blame. We have forgotten principles that we once held dear. And we must more closely articulate to the American people that we are the only ones who respect them as human beings. That we are the only ones who believe the American people have God-given rights. We are not here to tell you how to live your life, how to treat you like a child or a criminal because you go to church or you defend yourself. Conservatives respect people as individuals. We don't divide people based on their religion, their culture, or the color of their skin. We don't shun people who think for themselves. And we understand that every single person is different. Each person deserves the opportunity to build his or her life without some self-important government bureaucrat telling them what they can or what they can't do. We don't have the media on our side. Conservatives must be smarter than progressives. We must know our history. We must know what works and what doesn't work. We must think through the issues and make no mistake about it. Conservatives exist to fight for America and for every single American. Now, for those of you who are disappointed about the election, I am too. Remember, incredible innovation, though, it took place after Goldwater's 1964 landslide loss. It took the creation of many institutions, including the American Conservative Union, the National Right to Life, the Heritage Foundation, the Manhattan Institute, Concerned Women for America, the Federalist Society, Family Research Council, and among others, took many to change hearts and to change minds. It was institutions like these that helped bring about the Reagan Revolution and bring American exceptionalism back. Their work is more important today than ever before. So what can you do right now? It's really simple. You can be bold. You can show up. Debate these ideas. Persuade your neighbors. This pandemic illustrated that many politicians have a totally different vision for government than what the founders laid out. It was once said that the left takes its vision seriously, more seriously than it takes the rights of other people. They want to be our shepherds, but that requires us to be the sheep. Let it be heard loud and clear from us right now. We will not be sheep. So I'd like to close today with a story. My dad was a cowboy. He was the toughest person that I've ever known. Ever since I just wanted to grow up and be like him. Now, he died in an accident on our farm when I was 22 years old. And a couple months after he was killed, I finally got the courage to go out and clean out his pickup. Now, all of you who have a farmer or a rancher in your life, you know that they often live out of their pickups. Everything important can be found in the cab. Their wallet, bills to pay, tools, you name it. And if you need to find something important, every single one of us farmers' kids knows that the pickup is the first place that you look. Now, as the new general manager of the business, a couple of months after Dad died, I knew that where that pickup was, what was in it, and I needed to clean it out eventually. But those months had also been filled with hundreds and hundreds of questions. What seed should we be planting? What field should we plant first? What's the price that we need to sell our calves for to cash flow the cattle operation? And I didn't have those answers. I remember wishing over and over again, if I could just ask Dad. If I could just ask Dad one more question. And frankly, I was running the business, but I was daily faking my way through it. I had no idea how we were going to keep our family business going without my dad. And I was determined, though, that we weren't going to fail. So that day, as I carried a box out to the pickup, I knew it was time to clean it out. I stuck my hand down into the console in the middle between the chairs in the front seat, and I started to put items in the box that I was taking out. So the first thing was a pliers. How many of you know what a pliers is? A Baby Ruth candy bar. I remember that was his favorite. Notebooks, pens, tools. And then I found a little tiny tape recorder. It was the kind of tape recorder that a doctor dictates into. I pushed the play button, and immediately I heard my dad's voice. He was talking about seed corn varieties, which ones had performed well on certain fields that we owned that went with certain soil types. He spoke about how we'd had such a wet year the year before that resulted in poor crop yields and damaged grain. We had had a tough harvest, and he went on to describe what kind of variety choices he would have made differently, what he thought might work better for the spring that we were anticipating ahead. My eyes started to fill up with tears as I realized I was learning information that was going to be helpful to me in making crop decisions. I looked down into the console and I saw several more tapes, almost a dozen of them in all. And one by one, I put them in the tape recorder sitting there in that pickup, and I listened to my dad's voice talk about the cows, weather, markets, and what to do if we were ever caught in a tough financial situation. Inside those tapes were the answers to so many of the questions that I had had over the past several months. Over and over again, I had said, if I could just ask Dad. And here in my hands were all the answers that I needed, straight from him in his voice in the palm of my hand. Now, in that moment, I felt a strange sort of peace settle over me. I know Scripture talks about a peace. It was almost at that moment as if God was saying to me, I will provide. Stop worrying. You will be okay. Your family will be okay. I've got this. I had the answers. I just needed to get to work. Now, Dad was always the hardest worker that I knew. He led by example and he led by action. But that day, what changed everything was his words. I made a decision that day to be like my dad. A person of words, but a person of action. Because both matter. That's why I ran for office. My mission is to make South Dakota a better place to live, to do business, and to raise a family. One of the reasons I care so deeply about these issues is because I want these things for my family and for every single American family. I believe South Dakota has been an example to the nation this past year. People used personal responsibility to protect their family's health and their way of life, while the government respected their rights and their freedom. And we are working together to create new opportunities and a better future for our kids. We took the American path. Let me close with this. As conservatives, we often forget that stories are much more powerful than facts and statistics. Our stories need to be told. It is the only way that we will inspire and motivate the American people to preserve this great country. We must go into this fight for freedom with our eyes wide open, educated to the tactics the liberals will use, yet totally pure in our motives. This isn't about us. It's about our children and their future. It's about the nation that we're going to pass on to them. It's about telling their stories over and over that remind us why America needs conservatives, now more than ever. So thank you for all that you do. America is blessed to have you on her side. God bless each and every one of you, and may God bless the United States of America.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time we ask that you exit the ballroom so that way we may safely reset for the next event. Please gather all your personal belongings, your friends and neighbors, and continue your conversations outside this, the Regency Ballroom. Thank you for your assistance.
All right, everybody. I think that might be all for right now. I'm getting ready to try to check and see if they are done. Let's see. The wife is more knowledgeable about this than I am. Let's see if we can find out if they're in maybe breakout rooms or something. No problem, arms to arms. Oh, okay. I'm sorry you can't get any other way, Rock. We got you. Hold on. We're gonna switch back over. I'm gonna switch over to another breakout room. See who's who. Trying to see who we want to look at here. There are 3 different breakout rooms on here.
Don't let patent pirates steal your treasure. Support American innovation by passing the Stronger Patents Act. You will be helping American inventors and our economy. Learn more at SaveTheInventor.com.
Okay, that right there.
Stolen inventions.
That's already started, so.
Tell no tales. Stop big tech and their patent pirating ways. Support American innovation by passing the Stronger Patents
We'll switch
Act.
over real
You will
quick.
be helping American inventors and
Story which sounds familiar. A genocidal maniac in Iran or ancient Persia who is committed to the eradication of the Jewish people. Right? These are ancient and modern, literally to the word. And so we're going to talk about anti-Semitism, support for Israel today, and we're here with Cpac, under Cpac's leadership, to do this and to have this important conversation. With me here on the stage, we'll start at the end. We're honored to have with us Josh Mandel.
I'm going to tell you why I switched off of that. There are some rumblings about how Israel keeps things stirred up. We're digging into that right now, so if y'all want me to stay on the Israel topic, I can. Arms to Arms, I am on the actual internet. I'm on cpac.conservative.org is where I'm at. Arms to Arms. Let me check and see about the speakers. Maybe they can show us a little something on that. See who's supposed to be. So no, it's supposed to keep going. Again, Grammy Life, my wife is more knowledgeable about this. She's over tapping away though. Okay, so this is not telling me what I need to know. I need to know. Let's see. There we go. Let's see if we can do this. Cpac Central. I think that's it right there. Where it shows us where everything. Yep, it ain't showing me anything either. What's going on here? No, sassy lady. He speaks tomorrow at 3:40 Eastern Standard Time. We're going to be covering that also. And we're at like a little intervention right now. So, check on the watch live deal. Oh, and it is not in so far. So I'm going to pause that right now. I'm trying to find, bear with me, I'm trying to find where everybody is as far as like when they'll be speaking or whatnot. So bear with me, y'all. Well, they won't be in the breakout room. Check this. No, it's just going to take me to that. Okay. Well, it's not showing me what it showed earlier. I'm gonna pause for a little bit. We'll reset and whatnot, and we'll be coming back on live if they're going to continue, which I think they will be. No problem, biker. No problem, Carolina biker. But yeah, we're gonna. What's up, Charles? See you with those nice quotes, buddy. But we're gonna resume when they resume. Hopefully, gonna start making something to eat for the little children and get them kind of quiet and things of that nature. Sorry for if you heard anything behind the background. Got 5 little crazy little wildlings running around here. So, and the wife, Grammy Life, is trying to wrangle them all up. So we'll hopefully be back on when they resume. I didn't see anything going on right now, so that's what's going on. Thank you all for sharing the live, liking, sticking in here, whatnot. I'm going to talk about a couple of things that I got coming up. We're working on a conservative outreach that pretty much keeps us tight-knit because of all of us pretty much being either censored or businesses shut down or whatnot. And we need some type of release with each other to, keep it going. So be on the lookout for that. And plus, I will be having some merch come out later on. And so if you guys like it, be sure to let us know. We do the designs and all that good stuff. So we're going to be working with other conservatives that have online businesses as well. And that way we stay afloat with each other and things of that nature. So, big tech or anybody else can't take us down. But we will be resuming as soon as they resume, hopefully. Love all y'all. Thank you for sticking around. Love, peace, and honor.